I was always an artist as long as I can remember. I like to say I was gifted art from my father. He passed away when I was very young, but that gave me the courage to push on and to continue being an artist, and all the way up until college. And I was always like the art kid in school. If someone needed something drawn in elementary school or whatever, they always came to me. Went to UMass Dartmouth, got my bachelor's there in 2008, and have just been grinding since. So came out of college not really knowing what I was doing. It's a big, scary world when you graduate college, and just kept going at it, and found commercial illustration, and specifically in the craft beer world, and just the rest is history. So just been very blessed to be in the craft beer industry. It's a great place to be as an artist, for sure.
So did you start working in the craft beer industry straight out of college, or were there jobs in between?
Yeah, there were jobs beforehand. I used to sell cars. I used to sell pianos, and I wasn't even really, I guess, an artist out of art school. And then I kind of felt my dream of being an artist slowly slipping away one day, as I was sitting at my car sales table, at my desk rather, and I just kind of looked around, and the whole world looked different. I was like, what am I doing? And quit a week later and created a 5-year plan for myself. Said I'm going to be a full-time freelance artist in 5 years from now. And I achieved that almost down to like the day from when I started that journey. So I thought for a while I wanted to be a tattoo artist. That didn't really work out. I thought maybe I would just be a fine artist and sell my artwork, which I still am fortunate enough to do now, but commercial illustration I kind of just fell into. I really just set my sights on the craft beer industry and the skateboarding industry, and just really pushed hard on those. Wanted to do skate decks and craft beer labels, so those kind of just happened organically as well. And just basically, I did decks for a local skate company called Theory Skate. They're based out of Springfield. And then set my sights on Treehouse Brewing, originally from Brimfield to Sturbridge to Munson, now Charlton and beyond. So just kept submitting my artwork and showing my portfolio around online and in person until I got some bites. So
Great.
Yeah,
Thank you.
a little bit different than piano sales and car sales, but it's all part of my strange journey, I guess.
Thank you. Lovely.
Yeah.
I'd love to get to the kind of shops that you worked at, but before we do, I kind of want
Sure.
to ask what kind of created this passion for creating art and design for skateboards and beer cans and things of that nature. You can
Yeah.
answer them together or separately.
Yeah, I guess I always was really into skateboarding. I tried my hand at it and then just fell too many times. And not only am I an artist, but I also am an avid guitar player. So I hurt my hands one too many times. And I was like, maybe I'll just focus on the artwork. So, and I was always intrigued by the art on the bottom of the decks. And then with craft beer, kind of the same thing. Would find myself overwhelmed in craft beer shops of, well, I know I want a double IPA, but there's 60 cans to choose from. So at the end of the day, you got to pick one somehow. And I would always wind up getting drawn to the artwork. So I just thought it'd be such a cool gig to do an art label, not even the hundreds that I've done to date. I just wanted to do one, same thing, and just one skate deck. And I've been fortunate enough to do many of both decks and beer labels.
Thank you.
Two of my favorite industries, so I figured, why not start there, see what happens. So
That's
I've
great.
branched out to different industries since, but I will always be so thankful of my background, my early beginnings in commercial illustration, circling around a local brewery and a local skate shop. So yeah.
That's great to hear, and I'm sure that's inspiring for artists who know that you really set aside the 5 years and really got to pursue your passion and do art for what you're passionate about.
For sure. It came one day. I was at my day job, and I would go home, work nights and on my own stuff, on commissions and commercial projects and stuff. And I just woke up one day for work, and was already running late, didn't want to go, wasn't feeling it. And I sat down with my wife, and we did the math. And I was like, if I go to work today, my day job, I'll be losing money. With you factor in travel time, parking, gas, all that stuff. I was like, it's time. I'm gonna stay home and just go freelance, and that's when I made the switch.
Thank you. Great.
Yeah.
So can you tell a little bit about your time in the breweries that you worked at, starting from the beginning?
Yeah, so the way I got into it was I had heard some buzz around Treehouse Brewing, and was fortunate enough to try their beer at a 4th of July party. And the beer blew me away, but the label I thought was not so hot. You know, it got the job done, but it was more like, it looked like just they slapped something on there because they needed to get, you know, their beer out in the world. And I thought, you know, this is it. I'm going to contact them until hopefully someone gets back to me and say, hey, you know, here's my online portfolio. You know, in so many words, here's my style. I think it might, you know, match your outdoorsy vibe with, you know, what I've seen, you know, the other labels, and sent a couple of those emails, and someone got back to me, which turned out to be the owner, like boss man over there. And they hired me to do several T-shirt designs because they said they didn't need beer labels at that time. But long story short, they eventually used one of my T-shirt designs that they had purchased from me because they were in a pinch, needed a label, slapped it on there. It was a lot different than what they normally put out there and what their current fans were familiar with style-wise. And it was a hit. And it's been like 6 years with them now. And they're one of like a dozen breweries I currently still work with, and very fortunate for that.
Great.
Yeah.
I'd love to know, is there a reason that kind of inspired you to make this outdoorsy artwork that I've found that you make? It's all like really outdoors, kind of nature style.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess I would just say, put it simply, just the area I was born and raised in. You know, I now live in East Longmeadow, Mass, but I was born in Wilbraham, Mass, like literally like in the woods. And the name of the road I grew up on is called Mountain Road. So like it's on a mountain, it's in the woods, and I just would just be outside all the time as a kid. We had a pond in our backyard and like a waterfall and stuff, and I just have some of my earliest memories of growing up as a kid are there, and I think it shows in my work. It's kind of just inevitable that I was, you know, I do draw a lot of different things and find inspiration from a lot of different stuff, but I would say nature, outdoor vibe is usually what I find myself channeling into my work.
Perfect, thank you. I'd also like to ask you, I know that you're a collector of artwork. So first I would just want to start off by asking, what kind of art do you like to collect? Oh
gosh, all kinds of stuff. I mean, anything from original art to prints to photographs to just random ephemera. I have a flat file, which I bought for myself, but it is now full of everybody else's artwork. And I have one drawer for my stuff, and then I just have pulps and, you know, random, you know, B and C movies from the 50s and stuff, and I got a stack of headshots from the silent film era from actresses. So I have a bunch of original art from H.O. Rawson, which was basically, he essentially did the same thing that I'm doing now. He was a commercial illustrator as early as the teens into the 20s and stuff. So really just a mishmash of stuff. But when I'm out, you know, picking, looking for cool stuff, I try to set my sights on things from the, you know, turn of the century up into maybe the 50s or 60s. I just love that deco look, and just the pen, you know, ink and nib illustration of the turn of the century. Just I love that stuff.
It's great.
Yeah.
You touched on this a little bit, but could I ask you to maybe elaborate more on how the art that you collect maybe inspires or influences the work that you do? Sure,
yeah. I mean, definitely anything from how the artist applied the paint or ink to the paper or canvas to, you know, a weird old pulp magazine that has an amazing painting on the front. I might draw, you know, from the color palette from that. I find that those guys were, the pulp artists were just masters of, you know, figurative painting and drawing and capturing movement, even not even of, you know, people, of fabric and cars and stuff like that, and just interesting compositions that I just love it, you know. So I try to hoard of as much as I can in my flat files, and every now and again I'll take a, you know, poke through my own collection to get inspiration from that. Because, you know, you can always go online and Google stuff, but I'm a weirdo. I like to actually own it and flip through it and smell the mildewed pages and just look at the old advertisements and stuff like that. I love stuff that shows its age, and I like to think too that I'm like, preserving it and will eventually pass it on someday. Maybe. I don't know. We'll see. I might hoard it for a few more decades.
Who do you think you draw the most inspiration from for the work that you do?
I mean, it's definitely a mixed bag of both artists living and that have passed on. So for artists that have passed on, I would say Alberto Vargas, legendary pinup girl artist. Earl Moran, same, just amazing pinup artist, just like a master of oil paint and shadow play and just doing not too much, but just enough, which is what I find for me is the biggest challenge, especially working digitally, like not beating a painting or drawing to death, trying to do just enough, and just keep someone, the viewer of your work, like wanting more, but also knowing what's going on. I think those pinup artists were masters with that. I mentioned before H.O. Rawson. He was a commercial illustrator, primarily working just in pen and ink, back in the day in the teens and 20s. Modern artists, current artists that are alive and still just crushing it. Usually it's like a lot of tattoo artists. Obviously, I collect tattoos, but I'd say Jason Monaro is a tattoo originally from Florida. Now he lives, I believe, in the Pacific Northwest. He's just kind of has similar vibes to, I would say, like Earl Moran and those pinup artists. Just an amazing portrait and artist, and just does these incredible red pencil sketches and drawings, and just makes it look easy. I'd also would say probably Frank Frazetta, which I think most artists can say. Frazetta was just a beast. No one looked like his work even now. I mean, everyone tries to rip it off, and no one is capable of it because he just created these. Same thing. I'm very drawn to artists that exactly what you're looking at, but they didn't overdo it, but they also didn't underdo it. Just finding that sweet spot of choosing the right colors to convey the vibe of the scene. I guess also like on the more like playful side of art things, Robert Crumb. I try to collect his magazines or anything with his artwork in it anytime I can. And then also I would just say as a whole, I can't really name any names because there's so many, but poster artists, for movies and advertisements and concerts from the 50s up into the psychedelic era. Those guys were just doing insane things with screen printing and textures, and just shaped the way for people like me to be fortunate enough to do what I do every day. So,
what kind of mediums do you work in?
So right now, a lot of my commercial stuff I do work digitally. So iPad Pro with Apple Pencil and Procreate, but I also work heavily with watercolors. So most of my private commissions are done with watercolor and also Prismacolor markers sometimes too. So alcohol-based art markers, which you can actually blend and get some pretty cool effects. And also acrylic paint a little bit here and there, but also like golden fluid acrylics, which are really nice. So basically like the watered down version of acrylic paint that you would buy in the tube. I just kind of find a nice harmony between the markers, the watercolor, and the fluid acrylics to achieve the look I'm going for. And in turn, try to apply those same techniques digitally, which I thought would be easy, but has turned out to be a very, very big learning curve. But I think I'm right now in the sweet spot of how I want my digital stuff to look compared to my traditional works with, paint mediums, that sort of thing.
Great, and that leads me to my next question. Would you say it's, when you're making art for all these designs that are spread across all these cans and skateboard things, do you think, is it easier or harder working digitally compared to working traditionally?
I mean, harder. I'm not sure that it's,
or just different.
Just different. I mean, really, if a project's harder, it's going to be a tough, a look that I'm trying to capture for my client, or if they say, run with it, and they give me very few buzzwords, like that's what's hard for me. Actually, illustrating it isn't all that hard for me. I think working digitally streamlines things, and it gives you a lot more freedom for like editing, because then I take my art from Procreate and bounce it over to my Mac and then adjust it in Photoshop and apply typography in Illustrator, that sort of thing, which I used to do that a lot. I'd start traditionally scan it and then essentially do the same thing and manipulate it in Photoshop. But I just like starting or working rather in Procreate because it gives you a little bit more freedom. And of course you have undo, which is nice. Yeah, and when you're working with watercolor and those alcohol-based markers, there's no undo, you know. So, yeah. But yeah, I guess it is nice. People say, you know, what a time to be alive. It really is to have this technology in front of me that I can use every day and create time-lapse videos and show my process and adjust colors, and every brush under the sun is right there on my iPad. So I guess I would say working digitally is slightly easier because of the freedom it gives me.
Great. I was wondering if you could touch a little bit on the process for making like typical can design for one of your typical clients.
Sure, yeah. So when a brewer comes to me, they let me know what they're thinking idea-wise for the label, in which time I'll gather reference imagery both from my personal collection and from image searches online. And then what I'll do is I'll kind of Frankenstein together a mock-up for the label. I bounce that over into Procreate on my iPad and then basically sketch over the top of that so that I can get a more refined path for what I'm trying to draw. I then have my sketch digitally, and then I just work on top of that in layers. So add my line work, my colors, and goes up and up and up, add textures. Bounce that over onto my computers. So I do all my color editing and texture applications in Photoshop. And I also do typography treatments in Illustrator, which I then bounce over to Photoshop, and the whole file comes together in Adobe Photoshop, and it's good to go, packaged up, ready to go for the printers and ready for my client.
Great, thank you. I was hoping that you could talk a little bit more about the other clients that you have and the other breweries you've worked at.
Sure, yeah. So around here, here being Western Massachusetts, Treehouse, like I mentioned before, Vanish Valley Brewing in Ludlow. I've done stuff for Broadbrook Brewing in Connecticut, Battery Steel in Maine, Barnstable Brewing in Cape Cod. I've done labels out west in California, Tioga Sequoia Brewing, the Many Worlds Brewing in Norway. So now leaving the country, I've been fortunate enough to do international labels. Also Collective Arts Brewing. I love those guys. You know, they're very art forward, and I've done a label for them as well. So I'm sure I'm forgetting a few, but it goes on, and I'm lucky to have other breweries see my work with the ones that I currently work for, and try to get as many as I can. You know, my thing is I just try to get whatever I can get my hands on as a freelancer. If it makes sense for my current workload, if I can fit in a new brewery or a new project or mural, whatever, I will absolutely take it on.
Great, thank you.
The more work, the better.
Good, yes. So out of all the work you've done, what would you say would be your favorite project or favorite can or favorite design that you've made?
That's a tough one. I've done so many labels. I would say right now, like, maybe I can pinpoint a specific label further along in this response, but right now I would say some of my favorite labels I do are for Vitamin C Brewing in South Shore, Boston, and Weymouth. The owner, Dino, gives me a lot of trust. I'm their only artist, and he knows that, you know, he's always got so much on his plate that he doesn't want to, you know, art direct me too much and you know, have a label, you know, backed up for a week or more, and we're, you know, nitpicking stuff. You know, he knows what my art looks like and how my labels for him comes out, and I just have lots of fun with it. We've, over the years, like 6 years now, he and I have collaborated on some really fun stuff, and just refined not only my style for them, but also like the vision and the imagery for his brand. Like I said, they're on the South Shore, so they're right near Nantasket Beach in Hull. So we try to do a not so much beachy theme, but just like nautical theme, you know, without beating it to death. like a very like relaxed nautical vibe. Sometimes we'll do more playful labels. Sometimes we'll do heavier stuff. Right now, it's like my favorite stuff is that I am most stoked on. I would say would be for those guys for Vitamin C out in Hull or Weymouth, but originally from Hull. But I try to keep. I have so many breweries going at once, and I try to keep everybody happy as far as style. I don't want to have my labels for Vitamin C start to look like Battery Steel up in Portland. I try to keep it unique per brewery. So, Treehouse, I do a lot of more like painterly landscape stuff. Vitamin C, like I said, is kind of like more nautical, playful stuff. So, it's really a challenge, but also just makes me stronger as an artist to keep my styles varied depending on the brewery.
Do you think that there's a balance between having your own personalized style in all of your artwork and making sure the style is still very different across each brewery?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't want to stray too far from why they hired me in the first place. They want me to apply my illustrative style that they've seen at other breweries, but again, I don't want it to be too close to another brewery. So it definitely is a balance, but that's just part of my job. And I find it challenging but fun at the same time to force myself out of my comfort zone to create labels that are not only new for me, but new for the industry. I don't want my breweries to look like everybody else. I work very hard to have it stand out, especially if they distribute. I really want my labels to just pop off those shelves. And like I said, when I was in college shopping for beer, you gotta pick somehow, and it comes down to the label. So I take pride in knowing that a lot of people will buy beer based on my artwork, which is a really cool thing to think about.
So what's it like going into a store now and seeing a beer can with your label on it?
Now, I've been a commercial illustrator with deep roots in the craft beer world since the beginning, and it's when I see a label now, it's no different than the first time I ever saw it. It is so exciting. I never get sick of it. It's the coolest thing, and I'm sure other artists out there know the feeling I'm talking about, because it's exciting enough to get hired as an artist to get your stuff, your work out there. That's exciting. I never get sick of that either. But to see it actually in its final form in a retail space it's amazing. It like makes it more real. To have it like know that your art is out there, seeing the light of day, having people check it out, and like I love going to breweries and seeing people walk out with 4-packs with my labels on it. It's just a cool thing, and they get excited about it, and so do I. I just think it's really cool. So I always thought, oh man, I'm gonna get sick of seeing my work out there someday, but I never do. It's the coolest.
Thank you. You do so much art for breweries. About how many would you say you do a year?
It's a lot. I would say on the low end, maybe 50 to 75, but probably over 100 for sure. Definitely over 100.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah. A lot of labels.
Have you ever worked for a client where you thought, this beer doesn't taste good, this beer's kind of nasty, and you were kind of hesitant about having your artwork associated with them?
So I'll say no, because I usually don't get to taste the beer ahead of time. They say, we got a new beer coming out, we need this label. So I guess it would be more afterwards. I might say, hey, there's this beer that my label's on, and I'll buy it from Whole Foods or wherever. And sometimes it's like not so hot, but it comes with the territory. But I guess in an ideal world, it would be the best beer anyone's ever had, and my label's on every single one. But it's not, not reality. Some of my labels I can't look at because I can't stand them. I do so many a year that they can't all be my favorite label ever. So, but I guess yes, there's some beers that I'm not super stoked on that have my artwork on them, but it is what it is.
Conversely, I'm sure there's some beers that you like a lot and that you're proud to have your label on. Is that the case?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Some of my strongest work is for beer labels, and some of the brewery's strongest work is their beer, and it just sometimes we just both hit it out of the park.
Great.
Yeah.
That's great. So you also work on glassware. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Definitely. So Kever Glass is the name of my glassware company. My wife and I started it. It actually began as something I wanted to try for fun. I saw more and more art-based glassware coming out, and I used to just do a small run myself, through my online shop. And I just always wished that I could ramp it up and create more designs and get more glassware out there in the craft beer world. And my wife used to be a teacher, and COVID hit, and she just wasn't feeling it anymore. So she quit, and we came together to start Kever Glass and get an official tax ID and everything, and was able to ramp it up. And basically, to put it simply, I'd create my digital illustrations as I would for a beer label, and they're then applied using a process called full color organic printing. So we're left with a high quality glass featuring a beautiful colorful print of my artwork on the glass. We have a select number of designs that you can get at any time, both in person. We do pop-ups at different breweries and stuff. I'm going to do one at the Norman Rockwell Museum this Saturday. But we also have an online shop, and we do a limited release every month, which is really fun. So brand new design, small amount is made of each design, and once they sell out, they're gone forever. So it keeps it a little more exclusive for collectors, and it's just been really fun. It's been a great outlet for me to have my own thing, since I get art directed full time doing my beer labels, which is, of course, comes with the territory, but it's nice to be fully in control of what designs go on to Kever Glass. And it's even more exciting than seeing someone walk out of a brewery with my label, to just see someone leave a pop-up with a Kever Glass in their hand or tag us on Instagram. It's just been the best, and I'm really looking forward to where it's going to go. We have some really fun stuff coming out, going into the end of summer, into the holidays and everything. So yeah, it's pretty much it. It's been really awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah.